Welcome to part two of digging deeper into the Luyha culture and Luyha people. And from part one, we told you to put on the parking lot something, and the something is about the Luyha culture. And I just want to do an introduction on the Luyha culture, and then we'll get into the culture deep and deep. And we talk about culture, we talk about marriages, talk about burials, talk about child rites of passages, we talk about everything that these guys were doing and they are doing currently, and we'll get to try to understand, are they still doing the same, or they're not still doing the same, or things have changed. And no, wherever Christianity comes in most of these matters, most of the things do change. So maybe there are things that changed because of Christianity, or maybe there are things that they are still doing. And even if things change because of Christianity, not every person impressed Christianity. So there might be some of the things that people are still doing, though they're Christians, but they're still doing all those two things together. So when we talk about culture, what does it mean? It means the way of life. Culture is simply the way of life. We're not born with culture, is not in our DNA, but we are born in the culture. So there are things that we learn. We can unlearn them after given knowledge, getting given knowledge and all that, but we can also remain with it. So we're getting deeper into the Luyha culture. Luyha culture is comparable to the most Bantu cultural practices. Yeah. If we go back to the Western people, the West African people, you'll see some similarities in their culture. If you go back to Uganda, you see some similarities in their culture and the Luyha people culture. If you go to Rwanda, if you go to Burundi, if you go to Zambia, as I talked about some of the countries that I mentioned earlier, and even part of Congo, you still see some similarities in their culture because they are all Bantu. So there's nothing so different, though there's some difference. There's some differences in that, different things happening here and there due to whatever and all that, but at least there are some similarities in their culture. That's what we're talking about. So, polygamy, I don't know why they had to start with this one, but polygamy was a major cultural practice that these guys practiced, that the lawyers practiced. Not really practiced at the currently, mostly at the moment, but there are few people who are still practicing it. But because of Christianity, you understand, most of the things have changed, so it's not practiced as that much, but it used to be practiced much during that time. But the other culture that still practice that, yeah, sub clans that still practice that, and it's still normal to the still normal to them. I'm sorry for that, guys. You're talking much is also good today. With the influence of Christianity, as I said, it's practiced by very few people. You can number them. Yeah, usually, if the man marries under traditional African law, you are allowed to marry another wife, and if you marry under a civil law or Muslim law, you also allowed to marry. But if you marry under Christian laws, you're not allowed to marry another woman because the Bible doesn't support that. So Christians believe that the Bible doesn't support that. So that is it. Yep. About 10 to 15 families traditionally made up a village. 10 to 15 families, traditional, that should be a village, or made up a village. 10 to 15 families made up a village. So the village was given a name to the founder of that village, maybe the key or prominent person in that village. So if I am the chief here, the village will be called by my name, Alan, whatever. Yes, so that is how the composition came up when it comes to villages. I don't know if it's still happening at the moment, because most of the villages currently have more families, to 20 families and all that. 20 to 30 families and all that. But again, it's not unto me to decide that it is what it is. So we leave it at that age. And just good that you know. And every village was headed by a headsman that is called Willy Guru or Weli Guru. In Uganda, they call it Omukasa. So if you go to Uganda and hear someone talking about calling Omukasa, just know they're going to call the headsman, the village man. Nowadays in the Kenyan constitution, they call it the Nyumba Kumi guy. The Nyumba Kumi guy? Yeah, the Nyumba Kumi guy, elder. So Weli Guru, that is mostly in most of the Luyas within Kenya, most of them will agree with me. Like where I come from, among the Nyores, they call it Likuru. Maragolis, among the Maragolis, they call it Uliguru and all that, as it continues go to other. It's a title for the village elder coined by the English word crew. So the word Uliguru or the Mukasa came from it was Oh, they got it from the English word crew. I don't know how crew is related to the leader. A crew, I believe it's, yeah, a group of people working together for a common goal, and the crew will have one person that they call those guys who speak French will call it chief. Chief is the one who is leading the crew. So I don't know how Willie Guru came into that, but yeah, lawyers have their own ways of trying to translate things into whatever they think it is that is not, but they still adapt it and carry it along other people and teach it to the next and the next generation. So there are very many lies that people have been lied. This one means this one doesn't really mean that. So be careful when you're getting it, because it doesn't mean what you think it means, maybe. So you need to get deeper like me. You need to dig deeper like me and try to understand whatever it means. Yep. Maybe the words I'm using also means something. No, I've critically analyzed the words that I'm using. So when I'm telling you something, I completely understand whatever I'm telling you. I'm not misleading you. I'm giving you facts on that. Within a family, the man of the home was the ultimate authority. So, followed by the firstborn son. So, where are the women here? I'm sorry, not getting into that. So, the man of the home was the ultimate authority in that home, and then after him, the son gets the authority. So, when the man of the home is not around, then the firstborn son will take the authority, or will rule, or will lead that family to where it's supposed to be done. Will give directions on what's supposed to be done. So that is it. And in the case of a polygamous family, the first wife held the most prestigious position among other women. In case of a polygamous family, the first wife was given a prestigious position, like she was so key and the leader of the rest of the women that man was married. So she had a privileged position to rule everything. And something funny, in case the first woman had no, okay, in case the first woman had no son, because sons were valued mostly, and they're still valued mostly even now in every family. In case the first wife had no son, and the second wife gets a son, that son cannot be the leader. Even if the first wife gets a son who is younger, and the second wife got a son who is older, the younger son will still take, because the first house was given the leadership and the authority to take care of the other family. So I think now you understand that. So there's some mistakes you should never go do there when you're getting yourself there, especially when it comes to intermarriages. I will talk about other tribes, and we'll get to understand how do these things come together. But again, we said when Christianity took over, there are many things that people don't do because of Christianity, and people just look at it like, it's not important, that's not important, it's important, that's not important, but Christ has done everything for us, so we don't need to go back to the basics or go back to do those things over there. So the firstborn son of the first wife was usually the main heir to his father. The firstborn of the main wife, the first wife, was the heir to the inheritance of the father. So whether the first wife has a son who is older than the son of the first wife, the older son of the second wife cannot take care of the inheritance of the father. The one to take care of the inheritance of the father was from where? The first wife. And this comes into this what the Bible talks about, Isaac and Ishmael. God's promised son was Isaac. He was to take care of, to be the heir to Abraham, and the blessings of God was upon him. So with time going, Sarah thought that God's promises would fail. He went ahead and advised Abraham to go stay with Hagar, so that the child that Hagar will bring forth will be for Sarah. But when the child came over, Sarah started complaining again. Okay, all this is just coming from there. And then Isaac comes over, and then Isaac becomes the heir of Abraham and all that. So you get it right now. That is how it is. So most cases, the marrying of the second wife was because maybe the first wife doesn't boys. Maybe she has no ability to give boys. But again, is it the man or the woman who determines whether a boy is born or a girl is born? It's a man who determines. Don't do that, whether a boy is born or not. So I think by that time people had no knowledge. Okay, they had knowledge, but maybe they had no clear knowledge of the same on how to rule things out, because they're the very people who tell you again, if you want to get a boy, this is what you're supposed to do and all that. But who determines? I don't know. It's man who determines and all that. I don't want to dig deeper into that. That is to be put on that board of ours. Okay. Yep. The parking lot. We put it on the parking lot. Hi. Well. This is so interesting. Even if he happened to be the younger than his half brothers, from his fathers who are other wives, he was still to be the heir, and I talked about that already. So daughters had no permanent position in Luyha families, as they would eventually become other men's wives. So why should they be given, inheritance when they would just grow up and get married and become another man? So why should you take your inheritance to other people? But nowadays you realize that even daughters can inherit their father's property. So it's not only men who are inheriting, but even daughters nowadays can still inherit their father's properties, because things have really changed, and the Kenyan constitution allows that daughters to also inherit the father's property. So it's not only men nowadays who inherit the properties, but even the daughters. But by that time, among the Luyha culture, daughters were not allowed to inherit properties, and not even as we speak now, there are people who won't allow their daughters to inherit their properties. There are fathers who will never allow that, because we call them the conservatives. Yeah, we call them the conservatives, the culture conservatives. So they don't allow that, and they can't do that. And they're the very people that we talked about who still believe in polygamy. Yeah, you get that? Yes, I know you're getting that right. Children are named after the sub-clan's ancestors among the Luyha culture, and that is most of them. That is where you'll hear, me named after my grandfather, me naming my daughter after my mother, naming my daughter after my grandmother, naming my son after my grandfather, and all that. So all of us are named after our great grandfathers or our immediate grandfathers, and all that in one or the other, because that is what the culture is. That is after the grandparents and after the events or weather. So events and weather, there is during the dry seasons, the people want them, and this is not among the Luyha culture. I mean, among the Luyha culture alone. This is among even the Luo cultures and other cultures, and that's why I said there's a way. There's slight similarities between all these cultures and all that, and that is one thing that we all need to understand on the same. So when you get to that, we know now we're just one people speaking different languages, but came from one person, and that is it is what it is. So paternal grandparents take precedence. So the firstborn will be usually named after the paternal grandfather, Guka or Guhu, or Kuhu or Guka, Ama Guga, wherever language that you're using. So we're talking about the paternal grandparents given the higher priority in naming the children. So like my son will be given the name of my grandfather, and my daughter will be given the name of my grandmother. Then if we get another child, the second born will be given the name of my wife's grandparents, and whether it's a man or a woman, give the name of my wife's grandparents. But the first child is given the name of the father's grandparents. So please, if you get married to among the Luyha people, if you're not a Luyha, please don't name your first son or your first daughter after your wife's grandpeople. Please don't. They won't allow that. Yeah. And that's when the lawyers will say that child doesn't belong to them, and they will do some cultural things that we'll talk about that will determine whether the child is theirs or not. One of it is shaving the hair. If they shave the hair, the old people will come in and they will mum some words, or they will say some words here and there, here and there. If the child belongs to their son, the child will live. If it doesn't belong to their son, that child will die. But we're not promoting that. Yeah, we're not promoting that. It's no longer happening in most of the places, but in some places it does happen for them to understand whether the child is theirs or not. So subsequent children may be named after maternal grandparents. I've talked about that already. After significant events such as weather season and all that, we talked about that. So the Wafula, for example, among the Bukusu people, is given to a boy born during the rainy seasons. Ifura, sawa. Ifura. Wamanya Ifura? Yes, Ifura. Then Wanjala is given to those born during the Njala season. The Manjala season is the day of Inja. Okay, okay. Siku za njaa, or the days when there is hunger. So that is just an example for you want to talk about. Traditionally, they practiced arranged marriages among the Luyha people. This is where parents of a boy, a man will go to, they will look around and see a woman from a good family, not just any family, a woman from a good family or a girl from a good family, a well-mannered girl, and the parents of the boy will go to the parents of the girl and talk to them. After talking to them, after the parents agree, once the parents have agreed, what they do is they will take dowry. They will take dowry. Remember, in this, the boy is not involved. They will take dowry. And once they have taken the dowry, the senje, the sisters to the father of that girl will escort the girl to her new place where she will start her new life in marriage. Among the Ugandans, they call it Senga. Senga will take the lady to her new marriage where she will start her marriage. And Senga would have taught the lady on how to, be a wife and all those things that are needed of a woman to do to a man or in her own home and all that. So there are Sengas who will do that. You see, in all this, a man is not involved. This boy is not involved. There's the parents who are getting a wife for him, and he has no choice but accept the choice that is given or whatever is brought to him by the parents, because the parents, with the good interest they have, they went to a good family, a family with a very good reputation, and they looked for a girl who has a very good, very good reputation, with a very good morale within the community, a very well-spoken woman in the community and all that, and they'll bring her to them. This it doesn't mean that there are no instances where men could go and hunt for themselves. There are instances where men could go and hunt for themselves. And in this instance, where a man goes to hunt for himself, it is believed that, most of them used to happen at the springs where ladies could go and collect water for their families. So maybe James is, okay, James is not an Luyha name. Okutioro, or Oksahulu, okay, not Oksahulu. Okutioro, ama Okwapakato, ama Kondisina, Okusenge, yes, such a names. Amokomia could go to the spring where the ladies gather to collect water. And Okutioro could see Nafura. And Nafra, Kutioro feels Nafra is the woman that Okutioro needs to have. Then Okutioro, together with the Okurengo and the Okunjiran and the Wafura, they could plan on how they could, can I call it kidnapping? Yes, they could kidnap Nafra to Okutioro's house. Kutiolo's house. In Kikuyu they call Thingira. Yes, to Kutiolo's house. And then once the Kutiolo got in, Kutiolo could inform their parents, the parents of Kutiolo, and tell them, oh, hey, mommy and daddy, I got Nafra, I got Nafra with me, and Nafra is from this place. So the parents, after sometimes the Kutiolo's parents will go to Nafra's place to renegotiate the price, the bride price for Nafra. And in that case, what used to happen was Okutiolo's parents could pay a penalty for the actions of Okutiolo. So if they were to pay 20 goats, they could have added 20 cows and 20 goats, because if they could have paid 20 goats, they could also pay the same number of goats and sheep. If they could pay 20 cows, then there be maybe a penalty of other 5 goats for the actions of Okutiolo would be incurred in the same. So that is how it used to happen. So you get 2 different types of marriages, 3 different types of marriages in that. And yes, that is what used to be done. So in talking about bride price, it was typically 12 cows. I don't know why nowadays they have really increased it to nonsense. It was typically 12 cows. So when talking about 12 cows, it will also be accompanied by 12 goats or 12 sheep among in line with whatever is to be given. So that is how things used to work. As we said earlier, polygamy is allowed. Mid-aged man would typically have two or one or three wives and all that. Then there's one thing that is really surprising over here. I'd never heard of it anywhere before. I just heard it in the Bible when the son of David gets David's wives and sleeps with them. But it's among the Luyha people, this could also happen, and I want to explain to how that could happen. But it was not like the son of David did that. The son of David did it out of arrogance and trying to disapprove the father because of the advice he had received from his wrong advice he had received from his advisors. But how was it happening among the Luyha people? I'll give you I will lighten your eyes on the same and tell you how that used to happen. When a man got very old and handed over the running of his homestead to his sons, the sons would sometimes find a young lady or a young woman for the old man to marry. Such a girls were normally those who could not find men to marry them. So when your grandfather is growing old, among my community, among the Luyha community, the sons could find their father a young girl that could keep their father warm. That is the case. That they could their father warm and really active, not just warm, and at least take care of the father, ailing father or the old father. And most of the time, these were women who are unable to find men in their prime ages. You get that? Ladies who are unable to find men in their prime ages. The ladies that were given to the old people to keep them warm and to be with them during that time. Such girls, I've talked about them, um, married them usually because they had children out of wedlock, and some it's because they had children out of wedlock and they were not married by that time. So these are the women who are to go and stay with the old people, old age people, to just look after them, at least for them to find a place to call their own. And I know most of these cultures are still very active in some of the Luyha clans and sub tribes. If you go deeper, you try to get that. So whenever you go there and you see maybe a 40 years woman with a 70-year-old man, you should not be surprised. At least I've informed you on the same, so you'll clearly understand what's happening over there. Are we together? You clearly know whatever's happening over there. So that is it. So you don't need to be surprised that much, but I'm making you understand what this is. Wife inheritance was and is also practiced. Was practiced and is practiced even at the moment. They're still practicing it, so it's not something that went. A widow will normally be inherited by her husband's brothers or cousins. Normally, if a man dies, the wife will be inherited, will be remarried by the husband's brother or cousin. Okay, all depending when that, and there was nothing to be discussed on to that, by the way. Nowadays there are a lot of things that are happening, and there are a lot of things to be discussed, and the women have the power to choose who they want and who they don't. If they want it, they will do it. If they want it, they will not do it. But again, as we said, there are cultures that don't give women that, even now they don't give them that chance for them to decide for themselves. But this is where you see many women who run away once their husband is dead, and they're forcing her to remarry the brother to the dead husband or the cousin to the dead husband. She just walk away. But the other women will still agree unto that. And why was this practiced? It was practiced because mostly with the women who were well mannered, and they were well mannered, and the husband had a lot of property or a lot of wealth. They never wanted that wealth to go to any other place. So for the wealth to be kept within the family, is the brother who was supposed to marry the woman whose husband is dead, or the cousin, so close family members, to make sure that that property or the wealth or whatever significant that they have seen in that woman should not go away from the family. So that is the reason why this was practiced. I know most of you would have asked me, why was it practiced? That was the reason why that was practiced. Yeah, and I know that is still a bone of contention with very many people and very many cultures. And this is where you see, if a man dies and the man was very rich, and the lady decides not to get married to the brother or someone close to that man, the parents of that man will try to steal away or grab away anything that that man would have done or bought or acquired during that relationship, because they think if they don't get it, that woman will be married to another person from another far end, and those things will disappear. Their son's property and wealth will disappear to the hands of another person who never struggled to get them. Now you understand me on this, yeah? You understand me on this. Thank you so much for understanding me and giving me your ears to listen to me. I'm here to educate you. How can you know unless someone explains to you? And Alan takes in the role to explain all these things to you so that you might understand and never make a mistake wherever you're getting yourself in such an environment. So it's my role. Yes, it's my role. Teacher Alan, it's your role to do this. So you talked about that already, yeah? Yeah. So modern day Luyhas, the eldest son would inherit his father's widow. I told you that some are so surprising. So in here again, the eldest son was given can I call it a privilege? The eldest son in this family could also inherit the father's widow. And in what cases? I might not be so sure on the other cases, but the eldest son could not inherit their father's widow, who is their mother. No, not their biological mother, but these other mothers, these other younger mothers that the father had. So if the father dies, I don't know the arrangements and whatever could happen in between there for him to be able to inherit the father's wives, younger wives. I'm a younger wife. I don't know. Maybe with that one we'll dig deeper and try to ask all people here and there to try to understand what it meant and what led to that, so that we can also have the knowledge on the same. So modern day lawyers do not practice some of the traditions and customs that we've just mentioned up there previously, and have adapted Christianity as a way of life, as we said. Many lawyers live in towns and cities for most of their lives and only return to settle in their rural areas after retirement, during the retirements, or some of them will go taken back to their rural areas to be buried when they're dead. Because they have adapted the town life and the city life that most of the time and all that. So most of them don't really practice some of these things that we've talked about previously, but there are those who still practice them. So I would say 90% of them don't practice because they have been enlightened. They've been in the cities and learning and those other things, and they have changed their mindset over everything. But the 10% who are born, raised, and everything that they've done in the communities, deep in the villages, can be still practicing some of these cultures. So once you get yourself deeper to those villages and you find out that these things are happening, that should not shock you in any way. You should realize that it's part of their life and part of their traditions and cultures. Some of them might be bad, some of them might be good. When you talk about wife inheritance, it's commonly in among the Luos. Among the Luos, so commonly among the Luos nowadays than among the Luyas. Are you saying so? Yes, I'm saying so. It's commonly among the Luos more than the Luyas, according to the statistics that are there currently. Yep. Well, no, my son. They had existence customs surrounding death. We said we talk about that, so I'm just doing an introduction on that, and then we get to talk about each and every one of it as we continue. They had they had extensive customs around surrounding death. There will be a great celebration at the home of the deceased. Surprisingly, you get to understand. They had would have a great celebration at the home of the deceased, with mourning lasting up to 40 days. With mourning lasting up to 40 days. These guys are just mourning this person, especially if these people are key people or honored people within the communities and the villages. They could do all these things for a very long time. 40 days, that is like 1 month and 10 days, depending to the month. 1 month and 9 to 10 days, depending the month that person had passed. You know that? You get that right here. If the deceased was a wealthy or influential man, a big tree would be uprooted and the deceased would be buried there where the tree has been uprooted. They could say that would signify that this person is a big person, like the greatest of them all has gone. So for them to celebrate that person, they could approach one of the greatest trees, mugumo trees, ama mukuyu, mukuyu ama mukumu trees, ama or mugumo trees in a mugumo tree in with that language that called mugumo, but in the Luyha it's called omukuyu ama omukumu. Say they could uproot omukuyu because they believed mukuyu are some of the greatest and huge trees that you'll find among the very many Luyhas, and I'll give you the specific parts of the Luyha people among the Luyha people that you'll get most of those trees, and you'll be driving along some of those trees and you'll see most of those trees along the road, along a very long stretch of the road. And where every time you see such a big tree in someone's compound, that tree is so significant to these people, and that's why they don't want to cut it down. So if a prominent person or influential person dies in that culture, among the Luyhas, by then they could uproot a mukuyu tree, or a mukumu tree, or a mugumo tree. Among the Kikuyu, they call it mugumo tree. They could uproot it, and where the tree has been uprooted, that's where that person will be buried. And once that person will be buried there, that place will be considered so sacred to those people. And on top of it, they'll plant another mukuyu tree on top of it. And that tree, most of the time, were used as places of prayer, places of sacrifices in those communities and all that. So every time, as I said earlier, every time you see such a big trees in one's compound or along the street or along the field, they are considered never to be cut or never to be uprooted. Even if most of the time the road is passing through that area, they won't allow that tree to be uprooted. They should they find a way to make the road go around that tree, but not uproot that tree because those trees are so sacred to them. And in some cases, you hear of those trees, the caterpillars getting to those trees to uproot them, then they jump, they don't work anymore. Or the tree just fails to go down, literally fails to go down literally fails to go down. Like another story that we've just we had from Shinyalu. Is it Shinyalu? Yeah, Shinyalu. That's in Kakamega. A tree that was cut down, and it's been down for over. They talked about 20 days or 20 years. I'm not so sure the time, but the time was quite longer. Gaining life, okay, getting itself back on its roots again, and having branches and green leaves and not showing any sign of any cut and all that. Oh, that is okay. I don't know. Is it black magic or what is it? I don't really understand what that is, but it's really happening. So every time you go see those trees, like they're so big, with very few branches, but very big stem and all that, you need to respect those trees. And to those people, those trees are so key. And as I said, if you go to, on your way to Kitale, Bungoma, some places within Maragoli, some places within Wanyore, some places between among the Watiriki, some places within the Teso, some places within Isuha, Ishinyalu, Wanyal, and all that. You get some of those trees, and some of those trees are not to be cut down at any cost. They're supposed to be there. It's the knowledge that has been passed from one person, from one generation to the next generation, and they understand the value of those trees. But which value does that tree really have? Which value does it really have? Literally, it doesn't have any value. Just because someone was buried under it doesn't mean that it has that value. Maybe that person was buried, there was a seer or considered to be a prophet within that community, or considered to be a doctor, or the local doctors, yeah, the local medicine guys, the local medicine guys in that community. So that's why it's considered to be so key to them and all that, and that's why they revere that tree so much and they respect that tree so much, and nothing can happen on that tree, and they won't allow anything to happen on those trees. And some of those trees, they have some mythical powers, as people would say. As people tell, they have some mythical powers and all that. So looking into that, you understand that there are things that you're supposed to do and things that you're not supposed to do. But with Christ Jesus, as I said, Christianity came in and it undone 90% of most of these things. And most of the people believe in Christianity, so they don't really look into that. This is where you go see some stones that are behaving differently, some stones just behaving differently. Fields that are just behaving differently, then you're asking yourself, what's not happening in this place and all that. That's the knowledge that you need to understand. So when you are going for them, you go for them you go close to them with a lot of care and all that. They call it the Englishman, the Christian guy came and call it a shrine, a shrine. So there's some of those are places of their shrines, yeah, places of worship, local traditional worshiping, sacrificing places and all that. So wherever you go there, just be careful with what you're doing. Unless you're so strong in the spirit, you'll get to handle that. But if you're not so strong in the spirit, leave it. Don't step there. Are we together? Don't step there, because whatever will happen to you, you'll never like it. Are we together? So don't step there some of those times. So yeah, nowadays mourning takes less than 1 week. That we go to 3 days, 3 days to 1 week, depending to the status of the person in the community again. Because there are those whose mourning can take for 2 weeks, because they'll be taken to the mortuary, still waiting for their sons and daughters, maybe who are abroad, to come and participate in the burial. So it all depends. Again, it all depends with who and how these people died, because those who commit suicide are buried at night the very day. If you commit suicide in the morning, be buried that very night, that day, very night, and there'll be no people coming to to mourn you in any way, because you are a bad omen to the entire community and the family and the entire community. Then if a brother kills a brother, then yes, the burial won't be done when the family is there. all the people will be sent away from that. We'll talk about that one later. I'll talk about one later. As we say, the cultures that we're talking about. Yeah, and the celebration are held at the times of burial. And then after burial, there is what we call the aunties and the sisters of the person who is dead, a man who is dead. They will come for what we call obukoko. Yeah, obukoko, or they make it look good, lisawo. Lisawo. So that means post-burial ceremonies that marks the end of the wherever celebration, marks the end of the burial celebration of that guy. A burial celebration of that man, or burial celebration of that woman in that village or in that family. So you get that. So that completes it completely, and then all the morning rites are completed during the Obukoko or the Lisabo. So whatever they're supposed to do, they do it within that time. But be careful. There are very many things that happen in between that time that you should not okay, wherever you want to be associated with, you're part of the traditions and all that, that's up to you. But if you're a part of Christian, you should not be afraid of anything, because again, Christ has covered you in the blood of Christ, has covered you in everything. But you should be very much careful when those things are happening, because crazy things do happen in between those things or within that time. So you don't just get yourself and groove yourself in the same things, because you might get it bad from there. Are we together on that? I'm learning that language. That's my language. So that is what it is. Up to there. Yeah, up to there. Any question? No question. If you have any question, kindly put it on the comment section and get it there. What do you want us to talk about next? What do you want us to dig deeper into next, and get you informed on that, so that when you're making a decision, you're making an informed decision, walking along with knowledge and understanding of what you're supposed to be doing, wherever you're supposed to be doing. Make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed, and make sure that you share to other people. Let other people understand and know how it all works within that place. As we said, we're working with what you guys are asking us to talk about. Someone is asking us, okay, let's talk about marriage. We'll talk about that. That will be our next week. After doing an introduction on religious conversion, we'll talk about that later. I'll start talking about specific cultural rights, or specific rites of passages among the Luyha community. Thank you, and God bless you. See you again next time. Make sure you subscribe. Don't leave it that way. And make sure you share. Let every person understand this. If you know a Luyha friend, invite them to the. If you know any Luyha friend, invite them to this YouTube channel. Invite them to this YouTube channel and encourage them to watch to the end, because it gets better and better if we watch it to the end. But if we don't get it to the end, there are things that we'll miss. But if we watch it to the end, we get every information that we're looking for, and we are empowered to move ahead and do all these things. I love you all, and God loves you more. See you into the next episode. Bye.